Hey everybody, I'm Stefan for cgtestplus.com, and in today's tutorial we are going to create the cool abstract animation you saw in the preview. So let's get started. Let's create a cube object and let's click the fillet option for the cube and set the radius in the fillet subdivision to 1 and reduce the size of the cube like so, and we want to scale it on the y-axis, so we have to set the size on the y to 300. And after that we need to go to MoGraph and create a new cloner object and put the cube inside the cloner object, and we need to set the mode for the cloner to grid array from linear. We need to change it to grid array, and as you can see, that's what we get so far. We need to reduce the number of clones on the y-axis and increase the number of clones to, let's say, 25 on x and z axis, and increase the spacing between the cubes, for example something like 2000 maybe, or even higher number. And we need to zoom in and just reduce the spacing until the cubes touch each other. So let's set it to something like 2400, and that looks good. And we need to set this to 50 and 50 and 4800, just to have a bigger 4 here. And we need to create a new random effector, and as you can see, the random effector affects the cloner. Make sure that it's plugged in here. So let's click the random effector and let's set the x and z position to 0, and let's set this to 100 or 75. And we need to go to the Effector tab, and if we play now the animation, you can see that there is no animation at all at this point. So we need to change the random mode from random to noise, and as you can see, this is the effect we get so far. And we need to change the animation speed to 25% or 50, and we need to change the duration of our timeline to 600 frames. As you can see, this is our 4. Now let's create a sphere, and let's reduce the size of the sphere to like 25, and let's create another corner here and put the sphere inside the corner, and take the corner and move it upwards, and change the mode for the corner to grid array again, and increase the number of clones, something like that, and again change the spacing between the clones. As you can see, we have several objects here. Let's create a cone, and probably we need to reduce the size of the sphere to something like 12, and let's take the cone and drop it inside the corner, and we need to change this to, let's say, 12 and 25 like so. And let's create another object, for example a platonic object, and let's drop it inside the corner and reduce this radius to 12 or 15, and we can create one final object, which is this one, and let's put it here and set this to something like that, and we are ready. Now what we need to do is to take our cube and right click, go to a simulation tags, and set this to be a collider body, and select the objects inside the corner and set them to be a rigid body. And now if you play the animation, you can see that they fall down, but they don't they move through the floor. So we need to set the collider tag probably to the corner in order to work this, and it still doesn't work, and that's maybe because we need to set one of the rigid body tags to the corner. So let's see, now it works. Now let's go to the first frame of our animation and go to the corner, and let's apply another effector, which is going to be a random effector, and by default it randomizes the cones, as you can see. And let's click on the dynamics body here, and let's go to the collision, and let's set individual elements to O, and let's play the animation. And as you can see, let's reset that and zoom out a bit. If we set this to off, which is by default, and play the animation, you can see that all of our cones behave like a single object, but if we set this to O, it's going to behave like each object is a separate piece. So as you can see, this is how it looks so far. Let's select the corner and let's increase the radius a bit and see how it's going to look like, and zoom out some more, probably set this to 750 and move it a bit to the top here. And now we need to create our animation of the camera. So let's create a new camera, let's create a circular spline, and let's change the plane to XZ, and let's move it on the y-axis like 200 units and increase the radius like 800. Now let's create a new object and let's rename it target. And now we need to apply a align to spline tag as well as a target tag to our camera, and let's drop into the target tag the target object, and let's drop the circle into the spline path here. And if we turn on our camera, it's going to look like so, and we don't need to see the horizon line here, so we need to select the circle and just move it like 500, and we can play with the target object as well. And by default we are going to set the focal length of our camera to 20 millimeters, and let's play with the Y position for the circle, and probably just zoom it a bit like 28. 28 is good enough, and we need to animate it, so control click on the position on the align to spline tag to set a keyframe at the first frame, and just create a full rotation here, set another keyframe. As you can see, this is our animation, and our objects fall way too fast. First of all, let's reset that, select the corner for them, and let's set this to 1000. After that, we need to hit Ctrl D to open the project settings and go to the dynamics tab, and let's set the time scale to 50%. This is going to slow down our objects. as you can see, and from this random effector we can randomize the rotation of our objects as well. And let's make sure that the corner is affected by the random effector, and let's increase this to 125 so we have a bigger movement onto the floor. And now we need to put some materials here, so let's create a new shader and let's call this one 4, and let's set the color to kind of a 50% gray color, and turn on the reflection, set it to 1%, apply a Fresnel texture, set this to 50% and set this to 15% because we want some blurry reflections as well. And that's it. Let's close this material and let's apply it to the cube here, and if we render, this is how our 4 looks like. And we need to apply a HDR here to hide the scene, and for the sake of this tutorial I'm going to use the HDRI Studio Pack from Grayscale Gorilla. So let's apply the rig here in our scene and open the studios, and going to apply this studio here, and we are going to use this only for reflections, and as you can see that's how it look. And we need to reduce the brightness of the HDRI, so let's set this to 50% and let's make another render. Another thing that we need to do is to add ambient occlusion to the scene, so let's hit Shift Control B to bring up the render settings dialog, and let's apply effect ambient occlusion as well as a let's see, depth of field. We are going to use some depth of field here as well, so let's make a render, and as you can see our scene looks nicer now. And we need to tweak the ambient occlusion a bit, set this to 15 and this to 15 just to make the shadows darker, as you can see. And let's see, another thing that we need to apply is the depth of field, so let's go to the perspective view and select the camera and go to, let's see, go to details and turn on the blur, set this to 300 and this to 300 as well, and let's go to object and reduce the focus distance to 500 for example, or 650. And if we do a render, now you can see that we render our image, and after that the depth of field is going to be applied. So as you can see, we have sort of a shallow depth of field. Some objects are in focus here, other aren't out of focus, and basically that's the effect we are going for. And maybe we can set this to 28 is okay for now, and let's create another material, and we need some different color materials. So for example, let's make this one red, set the reflection to 1, apply a Fresnel and set this to 50. So this is for our capsule for example, and let's make this object a different color, and this is for the platonic, and this one here we need to replace it and make another one and apply it to the sphere, and let's make another one, and let's see, we need to make it for example orange, and let's apply it to the cone. And if we do another render, as you can see, this is how our scene looks like. You can increase the number of clones, for example. So let's do that. Let's set this to 999, and let's go to the first frame and play back the animation again. That looks much better. Let's do a test render to see how it looks like. And as you can see in the reflections, we need to apply some anti-aliasing in order to fix the jagged edges inside the reflections. So this is the next thing that we are going to do. Let's hit Ctrl B to open the render settings and set the anti-aliasing. And for the output, let's set the size. For the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to use smaller size, and let's set this to JPEG sequence. It doesn't matter. And now this is our animation. It's almost finished. You can animate the camera to zoom in and out. Let me show you. At the first time the objects fall, we are going to zoom the camera at this point here, for example at frame 80. We are going to select the camera and go to the focal length, set a keyframe, move 10 frames forward, and set this to 36 or 50 to zoom, or even 55. Set a keyframe, move 3 frames or 4 forward, and set this to 50, and set another keyframe. And for example, after 80 or 100 frames, we need to set a keyframe again and move 10 frames forward, and set this to 26. Set a keyframe, move 3 frames forward, and set this to 28. And basically this is the animation and how it is going to look like. As you can see, the scene is a bit heavy because there are a lot of objects and simulations going on. And let's do a test render here to see how our depth of field is going to look like. Pretty awesome. As you can see, we have some spheres here out of focus and a lot of objects. So that's it. That's the project in Cinema 4D. Pretty easy setup. And let's jump into After Effects to see how to composite this one real quick. This is the rendered I already did, and as you can see, I'm going to apply, first of all, let's apply color correction curves and just increase the contrast just a tiny bit. After that, go to the blue channel and increase the blue in the shadows, and after that go to the green channel and increase the green into the highlights and reduce it into the shadows, and go to the red channel and increase the red into the highlights, and just keep it normal into the shadows. And after that, let's create another solid and let's make it a bluish dark color, and let's make it a comp size, and apply a circular ellipse mask and hit MM to review the mask properties. Subtract the mask, set this to 500 or 300, and set this to, for example, color burn maybe, and set the opacity to 10%. And let's create another solid and let's make it a warm color, and this is going to be our center hotspot. So let's set this to like 500, set the blending mode to add, and set the opacity to 25%. 20 and just increase the feather a bit. And now we are going to apply a go, stylized go, and play with the threshold until we get the result we want. After that we are going to apply a real smart motion blur, just to add some motion blur to the scene. As you can see, it looks much better now. And after that we can play again and just increase the highlights a bit. Probably we can go to blur and sharpen and apply sharpen, set this to 15, and after that we are going to apply noise and grain and apply a bit of noise here. And basically that's how our animation looks like. So hope you like this tutorial and it's useful for you. Or remember that you can use these techniques for something else to create something different and abstract again. And that's it. Hope you like it and it's useful. Once again, I'm Stefan for cgtutsplus.com and we'll see you next time.